If a police officer wants into your house, unless he can establish what's referred to as probable cause where there's an emergency need to enter your house, he has to go to court and get the appropriate paperwork to make that happen, right? I forget the proper name. It's been escaping me all morning. But you know what I'm talking about. He has to go to court and he has to say, I have a need to be in this particular place, and the court has to agree that he has a need to go there, and then he serves that paper when he comes there and says, I have a need to come into your house or your whatever, your business or whatever. Well, the same thing in my mind applies to just about every enforcement entity in the United States government at any level, right? So when you start talking about the IRS's ability to monitor people's bank accounts, we've stepped outside, in my opinion, of the standard due process that applies to everybody. I don't care if it's regulatory or legal directly. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference. And that's what made me want to talk about the idea of government account monitoring on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday the 16th of October of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thanks for coming along today. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. The subject for today is going to be government account monitoring. Let me go ahead and get into my notes, and this will kind of elaborate on what I've already said, and then after that we'll talk about it a little more. I've spoken before on the idea of defining wealth. Put simply, the question is, who is rich? Certain people want to set a line in the sand. They'd like to tell you $400,000 of income per year, more for a family if I remember correctly, is some sort of magic breakover point. Setting aside the fact, or the idea, that most people who are well-to-do don't necessarily have what could be termed a yearly income. Most have assets, some of which appreciate value such that they can live off part of that increase, to be quite frank. It needs to be well understood. A person in Butte, Montana might be in relatively good shape making that kind of money. A person in New York or Los Angeles, New York City or Los Angeles, well, that's another matter. Here's the thing. The famous here's the thing. People with that kind of money generally don't sweat a deposit of $600, a withdrawal of that amount, or a balance in their bank account of that amount. Any of the three. It's not so much unworthy of mention as mundane in its occurrence for such a person. Look, let's face it, many people pay more than $600 in mortgage or rent on a monthly basis, and all at one time typically. Heck, it's hard to buy a car, even used, with a payment under $300 a month. Some of us pay $300 or more, or probably $200 for me and change these days, for phone service. Let me point something out, though. If your net take-home pay is equivalent to $15 an hour, you get paid weekly, your deposit is likely to be around $600. If that's paid every 2 weeks, that would be $1,200. With the suggested regulations, that puts somebody netting $15 an hour on the radar for potential monitoring by the Infernal Revenue Service. Yes, I did mean to call it that. Let's be clear here. If your net income is $15 an hour, that means after taxes, to be fair, so you'd have to be making more than $15, like 25% again, more than $15 an hour. Your net yearly income would be around $30,000 a year. Am I mistaken, or is that a far cry from $400,000? All of this put out there for public scrutiny, I have a question. At what point did it become legal, much less reasonable, for the IRS to be able to monitor the accounts of private citizens without some sort of court order? I'm not fond of the expression, but it seems to be a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for the IRS in general, or the government in general, and the IRS in specific. As ludicrous as it is for the IRS to be able to monitor accounts without court intervention to begin with, why on earth, though, would anyone assume transactions or possibly balances, I'm not clear on that because I've heard different stories, of $600 or more would be a good low number to potentially trigger such monitoring? I don't want to get too caught up in that, since the government shouldn't have that right to begin with. Okay, done with my notes. I think you get my idea. Look, to begin with, and this takes no kind of genius, if you are in a place where you're earning after taxes the equivalent of $15 an hour, you are in a place where, excuse me, I have to adjust a little bit here. You are in a place where you should be able to not expect for the federal government to monitor you to see if you're paying your taxes like you're supposed to. I'm sorry, that's reality as far as I'm concerned. Doing a little adjusting, you'll have to forgive me. That's ridiculous. That's foolishness. Are you telling me that a person making $30,000 a year should have to worry about whether or not the IRS has the right to monitor their income? Or their bank accounts or anything? The IRS already, the state, each state, my state I know, can find out what I made in a given year. They can find out when I started working and when I quit working at a given job. I know this because if you get unemployment, you have to, or they have that information and they can tell you or ask you, did you work here last or did you work there last? Sort of thing. They can literally ask you all of these questions about that sort of thing. The point here is simple. The government has entirely too much power to monitor this sort of thing now. They don't need that kind of power. That's not something they should have. It just isn't. When the government has the ability to say to the average person, yeah, we know you only make $30,000 a year, but it's reasonable for us to monitor your accounts with no court-based intervention to tell us we can't, that's wholly unacceptable. That's completely unacceptable. But look, if you were going to set up something like that, why on earth would it be reasonable to say if a bank account had $600 or more in it, or if transactions of $600 or more were occurring against that account, that's a reasonable thing? Why would that be reasonable in your mind, considering, like I say, a person making $15 an hour as a net pay, so let's say $17.50 or $20 an hour, that person would suddenly magically become subject to monitoring. And again, what does that look like? Are those people wealthy? If you consider $400,000 a year to be wealthy, then they're nowhere near that cutoff. So you're telling me that you're going to potentially monitor their bank accounts to see if they're cheating in some way, and I'm going, wait a second. Even assuming you have the right to monitor accounts, and in my opinion you don't, you're surely not going to tell me that somebody doing that little of a transaction amount should be subject to even potential monitoring. That is crazy. Whoever is suggesting that is out of their minds. If it's 1,000, frankly, in my mind, even if it's 10,000 at this point, we're really stepping on thin ice to say that that's a reasonable thing. It's just not. Okay? So for those of you looking at that and going, well, of course that's reasonable, how can you possibly come to that conclusion? Literally, a person making $30,000 a year may have transactions on their account of more than $600. And by the way, who decides? Is it one transaction in the course of a year over $600, or what is it? Who decides? This is my question for you at this point. First of all, why $600? Why even $10,000, quite frankly? And second of all, what gives them the right to do that in the first place? Okay, I need to go ahead and wrap things up. I could talk on this for a while, as you can tell. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday, the 16th of October of 2021. That means tomorrow will be Sunday, the 17th of October of 2021. For you guys who are observing the Sabbath, good Sabbath to you. Everybody else, I hope you're having a good day on this weekend day. As I say, tomorrow will be Sunday, the 17th of October. That'll be the beginning of that Christian work week, as I've said many times before. Thank you for everyone who's joined me on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube today. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a boxing glove or a plus sign on Rumble as a positive feedback. You can give me a minus sign as a negative one if you feel the need to do that. You can give me a thumbs up or a like, or a thumbs down or a dislike. That's a positive or negative feedback, respectively, on YouTube if you choose to do that. You can comment on any platform where comments are available, and I'll do my best to look at your comments and try and see if there's anything there that is worthy of my consideration. And my first thought is that it'll at least be worth looking at from that perspective. I hope that you're having a good day today. Today's subject has been government account monitoring, and tomorrow we're going to talk about something that Dinesh D'Souza brought on in my mind when he talked about our second president, I think it was, John Adams, and that is the concept of public persona. I really want to kind of discuss that and give my opinion and my viewpoint about how all of that works. Again, I hope your day is a good one today. I hope things are going well for you in general, and hopefully we will see you again on Sunday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Saturday, October 16th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.